Welcome back to Man vs. Weed, the insider trading and fraud review podcast. I'm your host, Tango Hotel Charlie. If you've never listened before, this show is a critical look at legal cannabis through the lungs of a well-seasoned long-term cannabis user. The strains sampled are all chosen by a total cannabis novice, my wife Robin, and tested by a total cannabis snob, myself. For those following along with the Northern Lights autoflowers, they're now in full bloom. Lots of bud sites everywhere and doing great. They are now transitioning to a flower-based diet to encourage those bud sites to fatten up. Sadly, another turned out to be a male and had to be murdered. But otherwise, they all seem to be doing great despite the Death Valley-like heat wave we're currently experiencing. The sample this week is Death Bubba by Namaste. Robin doesn't follow the whole shell game, so she had the choice between Redican and Namaste. She knew one of them was bad, but couldn't remember which. So she panicked and picked the Death Bubba by Namaste. Joke's on her though, because they're both trash. It was $10 a gram plus tax. Just a quick heads up, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. I decided to pop over to the local gray market store to see if they had any Death Bubba. I thought it might be interesting to have them compete head to head. I told the guy working behind the counter that I was going to be reviewing it and to find me the best one. Does that seem like cheating to you? Well, that's too bad. You should be able to do this in the legal market as well. In legal stores, you don't get to see the cannabis, smell the cannabis. You can't reject a bad bag. And if you don't like it, too bad, because all sales are final. He gave me 2 grams for $10. When I put it in my car, it blew up the whole spot. No terp ghosts here, folks. So yeah, this week is a head-to-head illicit versus legal cannabis review podcast. I'm going to look at the 5 typical categories cannabis reviewers tend to use: appearance, aroma, feel, flavor, and effect. I'm going to compare the samples and then give you the final verdict. So let's start with appearance. Obviously the legal sample wins in the stupid plastic jar category, so let's look at the actual flowers. The Namaste Death Bubba was a sad pile of Scrabble. Poorly trimmed, pale green and brown bud crumbles. Right away it's super disappointing looking, so at least they set your expectations accurately. There are chunks of stem and leaf and random debris in the jar as well, and when I put it on the digital scale, it came in at 0.9 grams, so just underweight with a bunch of stick and shake. The illicit cannabis, on the other hand, was 2 nice fat nugs. They were a vibrant green color with flecks of purple and clusters of orange hairs. The buds were dense and very well groomed. There was a tiny chunk of stem on one of the buds, however, when I weighed the sample it came in at 1.3 grams, so it doesn't even affect the score. Under the microscope, the Namaste was your typical corroded gloopy mess. Lots of trichome stalks with few visible heads. The illicit Death Bubba, on the other hand, was a forest of trichomes, with swollen heads and mostly cloudy tones with a few ambers sprinkled in. This, of course, as you know, is peak ripeness of cannabis flower and an indication that the grower gave a fuck. So in the category of appearance, who wins? Illicit cannabis. Easy. Next we'll look at the aromas. You know, those ever-important terpenes. When I opened the white plastic jar and cracked open the safety seal on the Namaste, there was no smell at all. Nothing. And when I put it right up to my nose hole, there was a faint hint of sweet cannabis smell. Just a hint. The illicit Death Bubba, on the other hand, blew up my van as soon as I put it in the glove box. Right through its sealed clear Ziploc baggie. When I got home and put it on the table in my room, I decided to eat before getting into it. And when I came back, the whole room smelled like the inside of a dispensary. Before I even took it out of the bag. It's very tangy and sweet with a strong perfume scent that reminds me of its Bubba Kush heritage. So that's another easy victory for the illicit cannabis. 2-zip. Next we have feel. And when I say feel, I mean, how does the flower feel in my hands? The Namaste cannabis is very dry. As such, it's very crumbly and breaks up into a dusty, sand-like consistency in my fingers, with no trouble at all. It's not sticky and leaves no residue on your hands, or any of your equipment. The illicit Death Bubba buds, on the other hand, are dense and spongy. Definitely not dry, but not moist either. Perfectly dried and cured. It doesn't crumble to dust in my fingertips, and I can use the grinder. When I go to dump it out onto my rolling tray, it sticks to the inside of the container and the blades. That's another win for illicit cannabis. 3-0. The next category I'm going to explore is flavor. I'll also touch on how well it burned here. The Namaste tasted bitter, and not a good bitter like grapefruit or whatever. I mean more like crunching up aspirin with your teeth dry type of bitter. The taste permeated my mouth and throat. It was also very harsh and burned my throat. It also made me cough a lot. And it burned with a gray ash. Not too dark, but not too great either. The Illicit Death Bubba, however, tasted spicy, earthy, and maybe even nutty. It reminded me of White Widow a little bit, and I always enjoy that. It burned smooth with fluffy white ash. It didn't make me cough, and the pleasant flavor persisted to the end. That's another point for the illicit cannabis, making it 4-0. The last category we observe is effect. Did it get me high, and to what degree? The Namaste is a very mild to medium buzz. That was very localized to my head and very unimpressive, nothing to speak of. It left me wanting to smoke another one and was nothing worth talking about really. The illicit cannabis, however, hit like a brick. I would grade it high strength with long-lasting effects. The buzz spreads throughout your whole upper body, giving you that almost vibrating feeling in your nervous system. A long-lasting high that didn't leave me wanting another. And for those counting, that makes it 5-0 illicit cannabis. So that's that. Illicit Death Bubba caught a body, and it wasn't even close. Namaste was beaten from post to post in every category. All that money, all that privilege, squandered. Do better, legal producers. If the regulations are the cause of these issues, then the regulations need to be fixed. And if that's the case, these legal producers should probably speak up about those regulations that need to be fixed. However, the majority of these problems are just greedy corporations trying to cut as many corners as they can to increase the profit margins. Then when they fail to compete with the black market on price and quality, they cry on social media and lobby to have police raid their competition. Support your local dispensary. They are putting their freedom on the line to provide you high-quality, affordable cannabis. And as long as their freedom is on the line for selling clean, high-quality cannabis, then cannabis is not legal. So would I buy Namaste over black market cannabis? I'd rather be dead, Bubba. Thanks for listening to another episode of Man vs. Weed. If you would like to support the show with donations, contact me at manversusweedthc@gmail.com. And you can find me at Street Villain on Twitter to join the conversation. Make sure to like, subscribe, and tell a friend that may or may not look like Freddie Mercury. It's hot as hell out there, so drink lots of water, get high as actual fuck, and free the weed.